Stuart, it's great to have you on the podcast today. How you doing?
Yeah, really good, thanks. Great to be on.
No, good, good. It's great to have you on the podcast. And I just kind of thought I'd start off by kind of asking you how you kind of got into coaching. So I see, you're a life coach and you help people achieve their goals. And, how did you kind of get into like personal development and this kind of thing?
Yeah, it's been something that I've been quite passionate about for a few years now. I've been passionate about kind of improving myself, self-improvement ever since I started working really, so about 7 years. Before that, I also liked it, but it kind of ramped up 7 years ago, reading like a lot of books on it, doing online courses and all that. And there's only more recently in recent years where I discovered that it's all kind of linked to mindset. And I looked around me and I saw like my friends and colleagues at work just didn't have that right kind of mindset and could really use the concept that I'd learnt over the years and have somebody help guide them through that. And that's how I then started thinking, oh, maybe I should get into coaching and actually help people develop this mindset. And you can actually kind of make quite a lot of improvements with the right tools as long as you have them at your disposal when you know about them. And that's what really got me started, just wanting to share, like, it's not really a secret, but what I learned with other people.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think that's a really good point that, a lot of coaching, kind of does come down to mindset and, to have that kind of mindset as a person where you know yourself and your kind of values and your emotions and you like your kind of thoughts are kind of all aligned, like with your self image and what you're doing. And I think like in life, it does a lot of it does come down to mindset, doesn't it? And if you can, you have your own mindset and you realize how you can help people kind of attain that mindset as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I spend quite a lot of time reading, like I read quite a lot of books. So I also thought, other people don't may not enjoy putting in the work. So if I can, um, you know, help somebody just on a phone call with just a few pointers and summarize what I'd learned in like a whole book or multiple books for them, then it really just saves a lot of time as well.
Yeah, that's it. And I think, reading's a really great way to kind of develop yourself as well, isn't it? To read, the right books and take the right content from things and apply that to your life and, be able to share that with other people and help them in different areas as well.
Yeah, exactly. I love reading.
Yeah, no, reading's great. Do you have any favorite books at all? Like, if you like, four or five or three different books that you have?
Yeah. So I read a lot of non-fiction. So in terms of kind of the best non-fiction books I've read over the last few years is one called Never Split the Difference, and it's
Mm.
by a guy called Chris Voss, and he used to be an FBI negotiator,
Oh wow.
and the book's all about negotiating. So it could be anything. He says it's such an important skill to have in life.
Mm.
Either you're negotiating with like your children about going to bed on time, or you're negotiating with your boss about getting a raise, or even just with your family about or friends about where to eat. So he kind of says like this is just a skill that everybody needs to have, and actually the concepts in there they're based a lot around psychology, and it's
Mm.
quite a powerful book. I recommend anybody read that book.
Yeah, yeah, no, awesome. I'll definitely have to check it out.
Yeah, and then one book that had like a huge impact on me. It's quite a cliche, really, but it's The 4 Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss.
Mm.
But it really did kind of open up my mind to a different way of looking at things, and it's kind of what got me started on the whole journey. And to be honest, what got me to where I am today. So whilst a lot of it can be taken with a pinch of salt, especially the first time you read it, I think once if you let it shift your mindset that there's a different way of doing things, that's like valuable enough in there.
Mm. Yeah, no, definitely. I've got the 4 hour work week as well, and I have looked over bits of it. I need to read the rest of it. But I think like there's a lot to be taken from that book, and you can apply it to your life. And I think it kind of is like talks about like, working smarter and breaking things down, and your time and using it effectively, isn't it? And I think like people in life kind of get that whole kind of thing mixed up with their work and their time, and you know, uh, the amount of work they have to put in to get, a certain kind of financial outcome, isn't it? I think there's a lot to kind of be learned in that area.
Yeah, exactly. It's a great starter book, so I'd recommend it to anyone, and I'd recommend his podcast as well, and
Yeah,
his blog. He's quite good.
yeah. He made a book. I think it's called Tools for Titans, and I think
Yeah,
he I haven't got it, but he made that, I think, from his podcast. I think he kind of compiled a lot of data and content from his podcast, and I think he turned it into a book. I think that's the book he
yeah,
made from
yeah.
it. I
There's
can't remember.
that one, Tools of Titans, and there's Tribe of Mentors. I've
That's
got
it.
both
Yeah.
of those as well. They're really good because yeah, it's just a person, and it's like 3 or 4 pages per person, so you can kind of go through it and he categorizes it in like business, sports, health. So you can just kind of look through it. It's quite a nice like coffee table book to just leaf through
Mm.
every now and again.
Yeah. No, no, exactly. Is
Yeah.
that all the books that you think of, or
No, if I one non-fiction, one fiction book that I've really, or it's a trilogy actually I've really enjoyed recently is the Mythos trilogy from Stephen Fry. It's
right?
all
Yeah.
about Greek mythology, and there's 3 books in there, and I highly recommend the audible version of those because Stephen Fry himself narrates them, which was quite nice. So if you're into, want to find out about, how Greek mythology works and Zeus and all the Greek gods and Troy and all of that, that's really good trilogy for that information. Stephen Fry is really good at making it accessible, which is quite cool.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And I think it's always good to have that, that variety of different books, because I think it kind of ensures that you don't get bored of reading the same books. And I think it's good to, you see different how different writers write, if that makes sense, like how
Yeah.
they put it across. Because I've been reading The Third Door recently, and you see, how the person structures the book and their kind of flavor on the book, how they're writing it. And it's interesting, to learn about different things as well, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. That's why I like mixing fiction, non-fiction, although I do weigh it more towards the non-fiction for the learning, but I do love just what you can learn even from a fictional book as well.
Mm. Yeah, no, exactly. And like with the whole kind of lockdown and this kind of part, the kind of time that we are in, I think it's a crucial time where we have a lot more time on our hands, and why not develop yourself in that time as well. And I see as well, like, on your profile, that you have experience in like the military, like is it the army reserves?
Yeah, so both I was in the Army Reserves for 3 years, and then I left for a bit, and now I'm in the RAF Reserves.
Nice. No, that's
Yeah,
great.
it's
And
sorry.
sorry.
Yeah, it's really good. Just something to do on the side, giving back as well and serving, and I think it's good to instill a bit of discipline in you, and the kind of, although sometimes it can be a bit annoying, marching around and having to do all that, it's also just, it's good to experience something a bit different, something a bit more difficult, and put you out your comfort zone, because it really helps you just grow generally. I'm not a big fan of marching round, but I understand that just learning those skills, being stretched,
Mm.
can be good, as well as all the other things that you learn in the military. It's not just about marching.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I can definitely relate to that, because I think I mentioned I did public services with college for 3 years, and I was going to join the military, the army. So I did like a lot of pre-selection courses, look at life courses, and I remember I did one with the rifles, the infantry,
Yeah.
and they have a different march to other regiments, I think. And I remember they have like a faster march,
Mm.
and it's completely different. And yeah, like you said, those kind of things do seem boring at the time, but I think there is a lot of discipline instilled, with the marching, with a lot of the things you do within the military, isn't there? There's a lot of teamwork, discipline, camaraderie, and many other aspects. Especially with fitness as well. You're thrown out, you're completely out of your comfort zone into scenarios that you wouldn't encounter in other situations. So you're growing in all these different areas, aren't you? And stretching yourself.
Yeah, exactly. It's great for leadership as well, and just a different kind of stress.
Mm.
one that you really don't experience in the workplace because even when you're just doing an exercise and simulating battle and you've got all this stuff going on around you have to make decisions, and then your mate gets injured and you have to like carry them, and it's just a completely different way of looking at stuff. And then when you go back to your kind of normal desk job, it seems a lot easier.
Yeah, yeah. And it's good to have that, that perspective, isn't it? Because you see things from two different angles and, of perspectives where, and I think as well, it allows you to be able to tune into yourself and to really like trust yourself and have that confidence and that discipline to deal with, many other aspects of life. And I think there's a lot of transferable interpersonal skills, to be taken from that, isn't there, as well?
Yeah, definitely. A lot of skills I've learnt and kept with me and have done me well in life have I've picked up just through being in the military, even
Mm.
just part time.
Yeah, no, exactly. And like I remember when I did training and courses with them. Like I remember even when I walk now, I'm kind of marching. It's kind of drilled into me. When you walk, like your arms go left left to right. It's but no, I think like it's so important that we push ourselves and push out of a comfort zone and do things that make us uncomfortable. So that we grow, and then we can use those experiences to to help other people in some way. And I think it's great that you do that with your coaching as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think growth really, really happens when you're being stretched and going a bit out of your comfort zone.
Hmm.
Otherwise, you're doing the same thing over and over.
Yeah, no, exactly. And would you say that you have any role models or like mentors that you like look up to, whether that's like professionally or personally?
Yeah, there's in terms of because also being an entrepreneur in terms of business, there's a guy called Daniel Priestley, and I really like the way he structures businesses and his ethos around how to run a business. And if anybody who wants to be an entrepreneur, I'd definitely say check out his books. Um, so he's a guy, and there's another guy called Ryan Holiday. He writes a lot of books as well, but I look up to him because he's like a modern day philosopher, and he's really big on making Stoicism as a philosophy accessible to people. And it's what got me
Hmm.
into that way of thinking. So, in terms of Stoic philosophy, it's more of an action based one rather than a discussion one. It's about kind of only focusing on things you can control rather than things that are outside of your control. And that really makes such a huge difference when you start using it.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think that is something that's definitely key in this whole kind of current situation that we're in, because I think like human beings crave, and we're kind of wired to crave for certainty. We like to know what's happening tomorrow and how things are going to be. And we're kind of living through a time of uncertainty, aren't we? So like you said, I think it's important that we focus on the things that we can control.
Yeah, exactly. They tell you to put stuff in perspective as well, because everything you can look at from different lenses. So you could say, currently um, is the worst time to be alive because we are in this pandemic, and there's loads of other stuff going on. But you could also look at the exact same thing and say it's the best time to be alive. Like, whilst we do have a pandemic, it's much better to be alive now than it was 20 years ago or 30 years ago in terms of
Mm,
how healthy we are, how wealthy we are, how educated we are, how much freedom we have in the world. So there's those different ways of looking at things,
mm.
um, and those different lenses. So you can always just if you try and look at your situation from a different lens and try and see the positive. So it's about turning all obstacles into opportunities. So there's always, even if it seems like something's not very nice at the minute, there's always something there that's actually positive out of it.
Yeah, no, I think they're really good points. And there's definitely a silver lining to the whole situation. And I've said that a few times. And like you said, it's looking at the things you can control, isn't it? And we are very fortunate to have the internet and social media and these kind with our mobile phones, and the things that we can do and the things that we can create with this technology, like YouTube. And we could learn something in this time. We could learn a new language, do podcasts. So like you said, it's quite a good time. It's pretty amazing time to be alive, really. Regardless of, I I said, things that are happening because, like I said, 20, 30 years ago, the technology wasn't where it is today. And if this happened at that time, I think there'd probably be a lot more stress as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, would you say that, have you always kind of like, did you ever think that you would kind of fall into coaching? Is there anything else that you kind of wanted to be or do in the past?
Yeah, I don't think I set out ever to become a coach, and I still have difficulties kind of saying to people that I do kind of life coaching because it immediately brings up those cliches in your head,
Mm,
which some people find negative. But it just kind of fell into it. It just seemed I was the person that my friends were always coming to for advice. I was the person who was always kind of helping people out and being like the voice of reason and helping people through the opportunities and stuff. So I kind of dropped into it, and it was a very natural shift for me. And also from doing kind of mentoring as well in the past, and doing some coaching in other parts like in sports and
mm,
stuff. So it kind of I grew into it, which is really good. But I definitely didn't set out from the start to be a life coach.
yeah. No, and I think that's great that you've done that and you kind of gone into these other areas and tried things out. And I think, like you said, a lot of the time people don't realize that they are coaching. A lot of people sometimes are just doing it naturally. They're just kind of doing that. And, they don't know they're actually kind of doing it, if that makes sense. It just kind of comes natural to some people.
Yeah, exactly. I think, and yeah, a lot of people, as you said, are coaching and are mentors just naturally, and they've just not thought about it as a career. But I think definitely for a lot of people, there's something that you're good at or that you specialize in. You could definitely, even if you're not going to do it as a career, formalize it a bit more and just help people because there's always people that need the guidance from somebody. And if you've got that skill, then you should definitely share it.
Yeah, no, no, I definitely agree. And like, would you say like empathy, the importance of empathy, especially with kind of current times and being a coach to be able to relate to people and help them.
Yeah, there's two sides to it. So definitely need to have a lot of empathy, to be good at listening, to ask the right questions, and to be able to relate to the people that you're coaching. But on the flip side, you also need to be somebody that's able to stretch them, to push them, and to hold them
Mm,
accountable as well. Because without that, then there's no growth, and you're also trying to coach
mm,
people to hit a goal. You're not just an ear to listen to. People can use other means for that. So you need to be able to listen and then allow them to push themselves and come to a solution and stretch themselves, and then hold them accountable to actually do what they say they're going to do.
yeah, no, I think that's a really good point as well. Like when you're coaching someone to have that empathy, but then you're able to kind of leverage that for them to be accountable for what they're doing. Because I think if you're an empath, and there's different levels of it, you could just be so focused on that person and their that say problem, but their current situation. And if you're so engrossed in that, and you really kind of engrossed in that, you need that kind of, like you said, that leverage to be able to get them be accountable and look at the next kind of route for them to fix it. I think, and I think that's really key.
Yeah, exactly. Because especially for me, my coaching is really, really goal orientated. So just firstly helping people get really, really clear on their goal, and then making sure you're just always keeping them on track to hit that goal, um, and just being there every step of the way, and just holding them accountable. And when they go, of course, bringing them back, and just being there also to bounce ideas off as well. Sometimes all you need is something to bounce some ideas off, and just once you get certainty that it is something you should do, then you feel more confident about going out and doing it.
Mm. Yeah, no, I completely agree. It's a really, really good point. And like for people out there who kind of might be going through hard times at the minute and they don't really know what it is that they want to do. And they're just trying to figure it out. Like, what advice would you give to people trying to figure out what it is that they want to do, or to cope with their mental health at the minute?
I'd say a big thing that I've found, and that I get most of my clients to do as well, is some journaling. It doesn't need to be much, like just especially if you're figuring out what you want to do. There's some key questions you can ask yourself, and then just kind of start writing and see what comes of it. One I like is, what does freedom and success mean to you? So you kind of write that
Mm,
down, and then you just start writing and see what comes of it. And then you could also kind of write down something like, what are the things, what would you do tomorrow if money and time were like no object? Like, what would you spend your time doing? And just start writing. And then you can even like think back to like, what are things you enjoyed doing when you were a child or a teenager, and just start writing. And you find that lots of the answers suddenly appear and they just show up. And then you can kind of reassess that and go, okay, now I've got a bit more information about what I really enjoy doing, or what does freedom actually mean to me. Because when you say to somebody like, oh, what do you want to do? Oh, I want to be financially free. And you say, okay, well, why do you want to be financially free? And they say, oh, I haven't really put much thought into why. It's just something I want to do. So you have to keep going a few layers deeper. And if you're doing that to yourself, just writing really helps. And you can just continue on writing and going deeper and deeper and deeper and figuring out why and why and why. And eventually you get to that root of what it is you want to do. And you can do the same about, if you're struggling and you're unhappy, again, trying to figure out firstly why you're unhappy. But what I prefer to do is to figure out what what would make you happy. I don't like to focus on the negative and on that survival instinct. I like to focus on creating and creating the world that you want to be in, and you're creating the life that you want. So just writing down, what does a good life look like to you? And then once you're clear on what that life looks like, then you can start writing down and figuring out, okay, how do I get there?
yeah, no, exactly. I think they're really good points, and I agree with you. And I think journaling, making notes, and like having a diary is very good as well because it's very self-reflective, and you're able to look at the things that you're doing and kind of have that kind of third person view, that kind of other perspective on your life and what you're doing, and you can kind of break that down, can't you? And like you said, ask yourself certain questions. Ask yourself the things that you want, and I think it's good that you mentioned like time, money like being no object. What would it be that you go into? Because I think like it's so important that we look at our lives and what how things make us feel, and what resonates with us, isn't it, as well? And by having that kind of destination, or like I said, kind of knowing what you need to work towards, you can kind of put in those relevant steps, can't you, to get there? Otherwise, if you kind of don't know where you're going, like you said, you're just kind of floating around.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, for most people, once you start to flesh it out and think about it more, you realize that it's not too hard to get there. It's not too big a change.
Mm,
Most people just want a bit more time to spend more time with their family, their friends, and maybe pursue a few more hobbies. And once you try and start asking the right questions and figuring out why you can't start doing that, now, you realize
mm,
that there's not too much that needs to change for a lot of people. I mean, it's obviously different for people's situations, but
yeah.
for most of the people I talk to, I end up coaching, they're really not that far away from. I like to do something called the perfect day exercise. I
Mm,
just say like, write down what would your perfect day look like, and do it like really exact. Where are you? Who are you waking up with? What are you having for breakfast? What kind of work are you doing? And I make it a perfect work day, not just like a holiday day where, oh, my perfect day is sitting on the beach sipping caipirinhas. Like something
yeah.
that's, realistic, that you'd be happy doing as your kind of job and life for the rest of your life. And it may
Mm,
only have 4 hours of working rather than 8, but it's just something that you're doing. And I find that people, once they've gone really clear on a perfect day, and then they start working towards their goals and stuff, that perfect day actually ends up showing up really quickly, sometimes within months,
mm.
because it's not too big a change. Most people aren't gonna suddenly. It's not something like really crazy.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think a lot of the time, like in society, a lot of people comparing themselves, aren't they, sometimes to what other people are doing, or they're kind of being told a script of how they should live their life, or like they just kind of get caught into that flow of what everyone else is doing, or how, however many hours you should be working in a day, like, the 8 hours, 9 to 5 kind of like thing. And I think, there's nothing wrong with that. But I think if you're not happy in that kind of flow, you need to, change it up. And like you said, it is possible to do that through, being self aware and really kind of asking yourself those important questions.
Yeah, exactly. And most people do want to work as well.
Mm.
So uh, even though some people say, oh, like, I'd love to retire and not do anything after about 2 days of not doing anything, be like, oh, okay, I do want to do work. You just want to work on something that's important to you, and that's that you're passionate about and creating value. So it's just that challenge to find it, isn't it?
Yeah, no, that's exactly, and it reminds me of a conversation I had with my friend today, well, over text, and we are talking about, success, and what is success, what success is, and that, it's very personal. It's a very personal thing. Like, success to me is going to be different to what success is to you, and what success is to someone who owns a company, or what success is to a bus driver. These I think it's a very big, very personal thing, and I think we're all kind of trying to seek out what it is and what we want to be our success to be. Like, I said to my friend, okay, you might get a 100 grand car and a house, or a wife or whatever. Like, but after like 3 years or 6 years, what else is it going to be? Are you going to still be happy and still consider that as success after a certain amount of time? And I think, it's kind of, I think, it's different for everyone, but I think it's always important to be, like you said, providing value, as you said, or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. And it changes for people over time as well. Like what success means to me is completely today than it was when I first entered the workforce years and years ago. So it's a question that you can ask yourself every few years,
Mm.
and see what the answer is, because it will change as you change as a person.
Yeah. Yeah, no, exactly. Like, do you follow Gary Vaynerchuk at all? Like Gary V? Do you follow
Yeah,
his
yeah, I
stuff?
know.
He he I remember he said, like, on one video, he's like, he was like, I might just, quit and just go into sports cards. And he was like, it's kind of been on his mind a few times. He's got business and stuff. And it just shows you can change your mind at any time, can't you? You can kind of be flexible. You might be doing something for 10 or 15 years and then be like, hang on a sec, I want to go into pottery or music or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. You don't need to limit yourself, especially nowadays where it's fairly normal and it's a lot more accessible to change careers and to change what you do. It's no longer that model where you choose a career and you join a company and you stay there for until you retire, really. That's just not the case anymore. You don't have to do that, which is great. Which again
Mm.
is why we're living in one of the best times ever that we've got the possibility to do this. So it's just about having the courage to just follow your dreams and take that step and take that risk. It is a risk, but what's the alternative? Being unhappy for the next 40 years. So it's a risk worth taking.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really, really good point, and I totally agree with you. And as well, like, where to, like, round up, like, where can people find you on social media, your website, your kind of content?
Yeah, so my coaching business is called Agoge Project. So I've named it Agoge after the ancient Spartan school system,
That's
where
pretty
the
cool.
Spartans learned how to they learned how to fight, but actually it was more about rhetoric, debate. They learned the laws, they learned arts, dancing, sports, and that's kind of how I like to see things, as like a whole rounded person, rounded not just in education, but also kind of mentally, physically, and healthy as well. So that's why I've named it a Goge Project. And you can find that at agogeproject.com. And on Instagram, Facebook, it's just at Agoge Project UK. And me personally, you can find on Instagram at Stuart F Munich.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome, Stuart. And I'll definitely, share your content, and I'll put it all in the link for you as well with this.
Perfect. Yeah, it's been great catching up with you today, Adam.
Yeah, no, you too.
And have a good day.
Yeah, no, you too. All the best. Take care.